This is Terrence Andre Banks with Information Age Financial Solutions, coming to you with an article about pensions from an unusual source, the News Tribune. The reason why I say it's an unusual source is because it's not definitely a place I don't visit frequently to find articles. But again, this pension price is, as I mentioned in numerous videos, one of the largest things we're going to have to deal with in our lifetime. And strange math leaves Oregon pensions in pinch of their own making. The title actually drew my attention, and I was just stumbling across this looking over it just a day or two ago. And this article is pretty lengthy, but just shows you the ridiculous state we're in that we're not really discussing enough is these pensions, because we have such a large population retiring, looking for benefits, and not to mention that the medical costs that go along with it, which is another serious issue. But let me dive right in, and as always, I'm going to put a link in the description. I should say as always, I'm starting to put more links in the description so you can look at this at your leisure. Let's get right to it. Joseph Robertson gives new meaning to the idea of a pensioner. An eye surgeon retired as a president of the Oregon Health and Science University in Fall. Robertson receives the state's largest government pension. It is $76,111 per month. That's the kicker. $76,111 per month, and this is in Oregon now. Okay, it's got a lot of advertisers, so bear with me through that. That's considerably more than the average Oregon family earns in a year. I'm going to repeat that again. That is considerably more than the average Oregon family earns in a year. And this person's receiving this, not bringing value in terms of providing a service anymore. He's just receiving this a month. Oregon, like many other states and cities, including New Jersey, Kentucky, and Connecticut, is caught in a fiscal squeeze of its own making. Its economy is growing, but the cost of its state-run pension system is growing faster. More government workers are retiring, including more than 2,000 who, like Robertson, get pensions exceeding $100,000 a year. The state is the most prolific pension player in America, but its spiraling costs are notable in part because Oregon enjoys a reputation for fiscal discipline. What fiscal discipline could you consider giving someone that amount of money for retirement, knowing that the average individual there doesn't make considerably more than the average family? But these are things that were given in a time when they expected exceeding the amount of growth, and they never took in consideration that of a slowdown or the populations will become less. Just the math alone doesn't even compute. The state is the most Oregon's costs are inflated by the way in which it calculates pension benefits for public employees. Some of the pensions, including some income that employees earn on the side. Even when I'm reading this sounds ridiculous. Some of the pensions include income that the employees earned on the side. So if you earn income on the side, that can be included in your pensions as well. Other retirees benefit from long ago stock market rallies that inflated the value of their payouts. For example, the pension for Mike Bellotti, the University of Oregon's head football coach from 1995 to 2008, includes not just his salary, but also money from licensing deals and endorsements that the Ducks athletic program generated. Bellotti's pension is more than $46,000 a month. I tell you, man, the bill is borne by taxpayers. Oregon's public employees retirement system has told cities, counties, school districts, and other local entities to contribute more to keep the system afloat. They can neither negotiate nor raise local taxes fast enough to keep up. Of course not with those kind of pensions being given out. As a result, pensions are crowding out other spending. Essential services are slashed. Now, this is when it really becomes dire and really needs to be talked about. When the essential services are slashed because individuals receiving this incredible amount of income a month, the moral conscience and capacity that people should be able to say, maybe something has changed, and maybe things I need to give back or do something different, or even being on the forefront of not and cutting these things will be a logical progression. But we don't live in those times, and the way it goes now is that as long as I'm getting this, I keep this quiet. I don't really care about anyone else. And unfortunately, that mindset needs to change. Not unfortunately. Unfortunately, that mindset is not said. It's really said by a lot of people. They just don't talk about it. Kind of jumbling up my words here, but we have to come to a point where we can have real honest conversations and really look at the state of where we're going. And let me continue. You get to the point where you can no longer do more with less. You just have to do less with less, says Nathan Cherevsky, the manager of Klamath Falls, a city of about 21,000 in south central Oregon. Klamath Falls, a city of about 20,000 south central Oregon, March 22, 2008. Klamath Falls faced a $600,000 increase in its latest biennial bill for the state pension fund and has to cut back on street and bridge repairs. You get to the point where you can no longer do more with less. You just have to do less with less. I'm repeating the same thing, but this is the New York Times, just Lee Schnash giving this quote here. But bridges, which is essential, bridge repairs are essential for people to get back and forth, and they have to cut that. Klamath Falls' most recent biennial bill from the pension system knows that as the PERS was $600,000 more than the one before. PERS has warned that the bills will keep rising. Cherevsky has had to cut back on repairing streets and bridges. Even as the U.S. economy is humming, many states and cities are still hurting from the 2008 financial meltdown. How can the United States economy humming if this stuff is going on? The crash hammered their pension funds and tax revenues, but didn't reduce the amounts they owe retirees. It wasn't until 2016 that the average state tax collections returned to pre-2008 levels. In the meantime, states and cities have had to rebuild pension funds to cover the rising numbers of retirees drawing benefits. It's estimated, and this is just outside of this, 10,000 people retiring each day. That has left the money for police, school sports programs, and everything else. Local residents might not know why, but they are paying more taxes and getting scantier services in return. This should be on front page news, because that Shalom says, like, listen, we come to some conclusions here. We're going to have to cut this to get people, the regular people and the other populations coming after, to be able to exist. Costs is rising even in places that previously acted to diffuse the problem. Colorado trimmed pensions in 2010, but a new $32 billion shortfall means more pension cuts and tax increases are likely. Detroit slices pension obligations in bankruptcy and persuaded philanthropists to chip in, but it's not clear that the city has an affordable plan. They still don't. In San Francisco, the school board wants voters to approve a 298 parcel tax on real estate, ostensibly to raise $50 million to pay teachers a living wage. That's a worthy objective, but it's not the real reason, said David Crane, a former trustee of the California Teachers Pension System. He said the school's district's retirement costs have grown by $50 million over the past 5 years, devouring resources that would have gone to teachers. Again, these pensions have become, that's why I talk about this so much, is because there's such a huge issue, and they're draining states, and they're going to continue draining states and cities and companies going forward until we have real conversations. I'm reporting on this to keep you aware of this, and so you can prepare for the times that are happening now and are only continue to increase and worsen as time goes on. Oregon worsen is not a word, but that's the best way I can explain this. Oregon is a blue state, but in its restive red hinterlands, tax increases are politically off limits, and financial distress has been severe since 1994, when lodging was curtailed to save an endangered owl. Lately, things have been getting even worse. When a man was reported yelling and firing his gun on the property of a school in rural Josephine County, it took 2 hours for a sheriff's deputy to arrive, says Kate Dwyer, chairman of the board of Three Rivers School District. The county has cut sheriff patrols, closed its mental health department, and kept its jail at less than half capacity because of lack of guards. So regular services and your protection is being hampered by just keeping up something that was too good to be true, and things that were promised when the time that they didn't even know what they were doing. Venezuela, saying they don't know what they were doing. They just didn't, the politicians, whoever people who voted these particular programs in place, were knowing they weren't going to get out before the time comes where they have to actually pay. But the time is due now. Dave Valenzuela, the Three Rivers school superintendent, traces the latest woes directly to PERS. The system is run at the state level, but is bankrolled in large part by obligatory contributions from local governments. This year, Three Rivers was poised to receive its first increase in state education funding in years, a reflection of growing enrollment. But Oregon raised by more than 50% of the amount of the Three Rivers had to contribute to PERS. So Valenzuela had to lop 5 days off the school year, ask each school to cut its budget by 10%, and lay off the district librarian and English specialists. PERS set the pension bill for each entity, local government, university system, and alike, based on the pay and demographics of its workers. Just about everyone's bills are getting bigger, because the cost of living continues to increase, and that's not going to stop. First grade teacher Tiffany Boney uses a video program to help her students exercise because Evergreen Elementary School is unable to fund a PE teacher in Cave Junction, or March 22, 2008. Oregon is facing a severe, self-inflicted crisis as mounting pension obligations crowd out the rest of its budgets. That includes the state, by far the system's biggest contributor. Oregon now has fewer police officers than in 1970, is losing foster care workers at an alarming rate, and has allowed earthquake and tsunami preparation to lapse. A 2016 survey turned up a large number of bridges with critical and near-critical conditions due to long-standing inadequate funding. Even prosperous communities are being pinched. The Beavertown School District outside of Portland has to get rid of 75 teachers this past year when its mandatory pension contribution rose by $14 million. That was far after shedding 340 teachers in 2012. I have town hall meetings and the parents are just confounded by this, says State Senator Mark Hast, Democrat, Beaverton. A golden touch. Oregon's unusual method for calculating pensions tends to generate lavish payouts. You think? For decades, PERS calculated pensions two ways, and retirees could choose whatever produced the bigger numbers. You're giving people, it's not even their fault. It's the pensioners who are receiving this. It's because you're giving these kind of options that just, it's not based on, especially for state-run programs, when it's based on people taking in tax income. So the rest of the citizens are right there who don't work in these particular jobs are affected. Again, this is just it's ending badly, and it's just going to even get worse as they continue, because they're not going to, once you give somebody something, it is extremely hard to take it away. The first way was, or even to cut it. The first way was similar to what most states are doing, basing pensions on each worker's final salary and years of service. But Oregon's lawmakers included a golden touch, redefining salary to include remuneration from any source. That was how Bellotti, the former football coach, came to be the state's third highest paid pensioner at roughly $559,000 a year. When he retired in 2010 as the university's athletic director, the standard pension formula was applied to his salary, plus a share of the outstanding licenses fees and product endorsements the football program brings in. His pension details, along with those of other retired assistants, were first obtained in 2011 from PERS by two newspapers, the Oregonian and the Statesman Journal. So this is just unbelievable. Look at this. It was basically to augment the university's ability to pay a competitive salary to his coaching staff, he said. When Bellotti retired, he was partway through a 5-year, $1.9 million a year contract, which he said was still below the league average of about $3 million. PERS made it up for it with a big pension. It was paid later as opposed to paying now, he said. Robertson, the former Oregon Health and Science, I kind of scrolled too far up. Robertson, the former Oregon Health and Science University president, said he had retired and started drawing his pension last fall. After learning he had multiple sclerosis, he said he agreed to stay on through the end of the academic year without pay for the sake of continuity. A spokesman for the medical center, this is not, I'm sorry the individual has multiple sclerosis. Medical conditions are definitely nothing to play with, and we can definitely understand that. It's just, again, these numbers are just astronomical. A spokeswoman for the medical center said Robertson's pension was based on his salary, incentive payments, clinical pay, and unused sick or vacation time. Oregon's second way of calculating pensions dates to 1946. For decades, every public worker got a simulated tracking account. It was credited with 6% of each paycheck, then left to compound at a predetermined rate. In the early years, a low rate was used because the pension system involved in bonds that didn't yield much. But in the 1970s, lawmakers started nudging the rate up, eventually to 8%. Again, these lawmakers. Then the system's trustees decided 8% should be a guaranteed minimum. In years when markets produced higher returns, the accounts compounded those rates after money management fees. During the 1990s bull market, accounts compounded up to 21% a year. When workers retired, the employees were required to match the account balances, doubling them. Then PERS would be the base pension on the total. Planet Tiffany. That's a good title. Randall Posenda, an economist who supervised the pension system's investments in the 1990s, gave speeches warning that the situation was unsustainable. Wait a second. They knew about this since in the 1990s. The only way you're going to get out of this is the state is hit by a golden asteroid from planet Tiffany, you go saying. But efforts to change the system, including a 1994 ballot initiative, were blocked by the state Supreme Court, which ruled that accruals could not be reduced during any public worker's career. Okay, so when lawmakers required government retirees to pay Oregon's 9% income tax, as everyone else did, they also increased pensions by 9.89%, giving retirees extra money to pay with the tax. It's an affront to everyone who pays taxes, says Bruce Dennis, a retired carpenter from outside Portland who earned $54,000 a year pension by swinging a hammer for 45 years. No one gives him extra money to cover his taxes. Absolutely. I understand your feeling, your pain there, Bruce. At every step of the way, because this is it's just ridiculous when you know the rest of the population around you is suffering. Again, the individuals are not going to give anything back, or the thought of cutting, they're going to do protests, and since they're the largest people who make up Congress, until that new wave comes in and the millennials become much more frustrated, this is going to continue. At every step of the way, they made decisions that went against the interests of the public, he said. Starting in 2003, the tracking accounts were phased out, but workers who already had the accounts were already allowed to keep them. New hirees got a more modest retirement plan. The cost of this pension system is not caused by the people we are hiring today, said Stephen Rahman, Executive Director of Public Employees Retirement System. This is a legacy problem from the 1980s and 1990s. For workers with the tracking accounts, PERS dialed back the annual returns to 8%, then to 7.5% in 2016. This is still more than what PERS investments have generated over the past decade, and so the pension fund's financial hole continues to deepen. Across Oregon, local officials have been told to brace for 15 to 20 more years of rising pension bills. That's when the current generation retires will start dying out. You could think you could wait to 15, 20 years. We have not had a recession yet, folks. And you're thinking you're going to be able to make it to that time? With this already going on? In the meantime, mounting pension costs mean that a generation of school children is growing up in the area with no theater program, no orchestra, no wood shop, and minimal sports, chorus, and art. That's if they can get to school. A county road recently washed out stranding 300 people. Dwyer of the Three Rivers School District reported the problem of a public workers official. She crowed the spot. I have trucks, but I can't put gas in them to come to dig you out. Look at this, man. Wow, this is a pretty long article. Let me see. Oh, they're giving different aspects of that. That's pretty much the end of it. I kind of skipped a little bit past it, but it was a really lengthy article. Didn't mean to make this video so long, but the content alone is still so potent, and it's still something you really need to add. I'm going to put the link here. If this video has been any value, like it, leave some comments, and until my next video, I'm out.